And good morning. It's finally done. UFL regular season. Kaput, capiche. Moving on, right? Um, Conference championship preview. We've known who the teams were for the last 3 weeks, so maybe not that exciting, but overall, pretty pumped to be able to talk about this, see what's going on, and continue to press forward and everything like that. So, obviously week 9 comes and go, or excuse me, week 10 comes and goes and whatnot. We have our toilet bowl, we have the home field advantage bowl for one of these, and then we just have a rematch of the XFL Championship from 2023. So, in my opinion, I believed each game was pretty good. I believed each game had some sort of value that made my life better and enhanced my like want and liking for this league. Others may disagree, but in the end, that's just my opinion on it. I really think that we kind of saw like some last hurrahs. We'll go through the games and whatnot as well. I think we saw a lot of potential to some guys for the next season. But before we get into that, if you're new here, my name is Pat Ruffino. I run this YouTube channel called Analyze and Educate. I have guests on. I do interviews. So if you're new here, if you want, drop a like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys, jumping on with me in the morning. But yeah, without further ado, let's talk about these games, get into these quarterback rankings, and then we'll push on from there. Long story short, Birmingham and Michigan taking place, right? This is our precursor for game 1. For what it is, you have Michigan coming in there. They're looking like they're gonna, kind of run away with this one. They kind of put it in. Adrian Martinez looking a little bit stuttered, a couple bad drops and whatnot, and then, we're gonna throw it to Bryce Perkins and everything like that, and all of a sudden it kind of just goes away and whatnot. To me, we'll talk about it as we get into the quarterbacks and everything like that, but it just it just looks like they're extremely beatable and whatnot, and that's just my opinion on it. And a lot of people come at. You had San Antonio versus St. Louis. Both teams kind of look like they were kind of hitting the gas pedal and then coming off, kind of just like what they call it, metering a little bit and whatnot. You had Arlington versus DC, two spring football legends. They're kind of going at it, for one final time. This is Bob Stoops' last game. Yeah, Houston and Memphis going for the toilet bowl win. It was a game. It was competitive for what that's worth, but overall, nothing too sexy on that front. But we did get their final ranking of quarterback rankings and whatnot. So what we are going to do, we'll go through these. And then, we'll preview the conference championship game while also hitting on a couple of the games as we talk about these quarterbacks. Another thing, just a heads up, is that we'll be doing a conference championship, as we do the championship week preview and whatnot, we'll also do like quarterback rankings for everything. And then we'll continue to progress on and talk about it, and then we'll do a final quarterback rankings with all like 20 plus players that have thrown a pass in the UFL for 2024, and then Nicholas Thorne and I will be doing some stuff together as well. But everyone loves the quarterback rankings; it's always debatable and whatnot. So without further ado, let's get it started. Number 11. This week. So we had 12 quarterbacks to actually play a little bit. Number 11, I'm going to give it to the boy, Reed Sinnett. Sinnett goes 1 of 2, 16 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, no rushing stats and whatnot. Obviously, very limited showing. Really want to see Nolan Henderson get an opportunity. Appears this week for the Toilet Bowl. The game had major implications for the draft process. I'm very curious to see what Sinnett's future is going forward. Overall, I believe he had a decent year. We'll talk about it in our final QB rankings. I do think that the offense didn't really fit his skill set, but I do think he provides a lot of value as far as being being a leader, having the knowledge and whatnot, and continuing to like be an asset in these types of leagues. I think Sinet to me is maybe another year or two as far as like what we think he should be a part of this league. But he had some good moments. I just think sometimes that Houston in general, all Houston players are not really set up to succeed. And that's my opinion on that front. Obviously, Houston finishes the season 1-9. Um, I would assume that they go full in with Nolan Henderson in 2025 if he's still around and whatnot. But there should be a regime change there, and if there is, um, I hope it's all for the best. To be honest with you, coming in at number 10, it's Bryce Perkins. Limited sample size. He continues to progress. He continues to get better, but as you saw, he only goes one pass attempt, 3 rushing attempts, 37 yards, and then gets hurt. I was leaning towards Perkins to be the guy. I was leaning towards Perkins to, kind of be the spark plug that EJ Perry provided for them last year. Kind of a weak rushing game for Michigan. They went over 135 yards, but they really leaned on both quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks were number 120 and number 2 and whatnot. This defense looks a lot better, and we'll kind of preview when we talk about these Michigan quarterbacks a little bit. This defense is for Michigan. You're putting pressure on Adrian Martinez. You're being exotic and whatnot. And yeah, they threw some of these like exotic blitzes with a bare front that coming guys off the edge and everything. But as long as they're doing that, I feel like they're in a pretty good place. If you get Marcus Sims back, if you get COC Mariner playing at a high level, you have Trey Quinn there. Devin Gray is an extremely serviceable guy. Excuse me. I think you're in a pretty good spot. I think I'm going to pick Birmingham for the preview, but overall, Michigan winning would not surprise me. And it's kind of weird because I think Michigan, I was talking to Nicholas Thorne about this. I feel like Michigan doesn't match up as well against the Stallions, or excuse me, against the Battlehawks or the losing my mind here, or the Brahmas. But I feel like they match up pretty well against Birmingham and whatnot. And playing the team for a third time, I feel like you're in a pretty good spot, to be honest with you. So that's my opinion. Perkins coming in at number 10. Don't want to get too off track here, but it was more for limited sample size versus his output. Another guy with a limited sample size this week was Chase Garbers. Goes 5 of 11, 40 yards. No touchdowns, 1 pick, 3 of 5. Kind of looked a little bit off kiltered and everything like that, seeing him play. In my opinion, he isn't ready to come back. I think he's still a little hurt. I think he's still kind of dealing with the injury. Obviously, he gets knocked out of the game. Kind of makes sense on that front and whatnot. And then from there, it just didn't look good, didn't look pretty, nothing like that. I personally feel that, Garbers might want to kind of chill out a little bit. I think he's got a potential in an NFL contract and whatnot. And does he really want to get hurt? Especially because of how well he played in the UFL. He's got plenty of, opportunity to come back for, he's done enough to prove that he can play at this level. If he needs to come back, I can imagine he comes back and whatnot. But, we'll see what happens on that. A little disappointing. Quinn Dormandy played in, did some good stuff. Pushed on the team and everything like that, but in the end, it seems like Garber's done. I'm curious to see who they bring back this short. Do you bring back Tom Flacco? Do you bring back Christian DeLora? I would bring back Flacco. I think DeLora is probably a little bit of a scumbag, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion, but like I said, that's where they're at right now. Moving on, coming in at number 8, it's going to be Josh Love. Congrats to Josh Love, getting his first victory of the year. Nothing too crazy from him. He goes 20 of 29, 152, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick, 4 rushing attempts, 4 rushing yards. Really leaned on the running game. Really leaned on. They talked about this in the preview. Very safe game plan for Love. This is his 3rd game to come in here. Put together a respectable stat line, a lot of dinking and dunking and whatnot. So, nothing too crazy. I wouldn't be surprised to see Love come back next year. I would like for him to come back next year. I think he's earned it. I don't think he should be the starter or anything like that, but I do think that he is kind of at this point a part of the spring football cog that is so essential and whatnot. So I could see Love coming back. I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't get too too high, too low about it. But on that flip side, it's like, this is, and Thorne and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like, how amped up are we getting about Josh Love? Like coming in, like would we have rather seen Cole Kelly and whatnot, and that'd be my opinion. So that's really it. I mean, Chris is having a ball with all these hilarious messages, in my opinion. It's pretty funny. But that's the way the cookie crumbles on that one. Congrats to Josh Love regardless. Been through a little bit of the grinder this year to come back and then continue to actually like make a play and do some stuff. Coming in at number 7, Nolan Henderson. A lot of backyard football, 21 of 34, 232. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 4 rushing yards, 43 picks. Obviously, they were the losing team to Josh Love. When Josh Love enters, good things happen. I personally feel that with Henderson, it's a little bit too unscripted. Their team is very much, okay, find Justin Hall, find Justin Hall, find Kurt Merritt, just make a play. They kind of abandoned Mark Thompson. They didn't really do a lot of the same things that made them successful last year. They were a little bit more pro style. I wonder if having a guy like Kenji Bahar, like as your QB3, your veteran 3, I wonder if that would have helped this team a lot. I wonder if his understanding of the offense and being a pseudo coach would have made things a lot easier for Nolan. I personally feel he was constantly running around, kind of like a chicken without his head, using his athleticism, which is great. But at times you still need to have the athletes around you to make plays and obviously put together competent football. I feel like their defense is really old. I hope that there's kind of some, massive overhaul. I don't think there will be. I feel like if it's a similar coaching staff, that they're going to keep the same team on defense, especially. Their offensive line was terrible, which is probably why they put Henderson in there. But overall, one thing you can say about Nolan Henderson is that he cares and he puts it out all on the line. So, like I said, no touchdowns for Nolan this week. Did his best, but unfortunately his best was not good enough. Moving on to number 6. In his return from injury, it's A.J. McCarron. Kind of a big drop, 10 of 24, 115, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 4 rushing attempts, 12 rushing yards. He did look a little bit more mobile than I thought he was going to. With AJ, biggest thing for me was they kind of babied him this game. It was a lot of like side-to-side passes and whatnot, and occasionally when he did try to stretch ball down the field, there were drops and whatnot. I was a little disappointed to see kind of this, for lack of a better term, lack of aggressiveness and whatnot. The fact that the game came down to the end and was really disappointing. I feel like if they were a little bit more aggressive, and they probably could have popped a couple more points on the board. I felt, there was a couple drops. I know Stevie Mitchell had like 2 drops. Darius Shepard had ball knocked out of his hands. That could be considered a drop. And, it kind of felt like AJ was still getting his timing down. But A win is a win. I would have liked to see a little bit more, and we'll talk about this in the conference preview, a little bit more from the defensive pass rush as well. Especially with Dormandy's not crazy athletic and whatnot, so maybe going against him another week. Their Brahmas offensive line played a lot better than I thought they would, but in the end, AJ came out of the game healthy. He looked a lot more athletic. Um, they have another week of practice. The game is on Sunday, so every day is just going to get a little bit more healthier, and I mean that's all that matters is that at this point. Bring a championship to the city, get pumped about it. Hopefully, they give these boys a parade. Coming in number 5, I got Quinn Dormandy. He goes 15 of 17, 188, one touchdown, no picks, no rushing stats. I mean, Dormandy wasn't supposed to start. He got actually injured last week, and then came out of the game. So comes in cold. Some good stuff from. I think the Battlehawks secondary is honestly pretty underrated to an extent. I believe it was Chris Payton-Jones who had a pretty good game. And there was a couple other unsung heroes in there. I know they picked on Tim Harris a little bit, but something I was pretty high on coming into this game was the lack of, Cody Latimer's gone, and then you bench Sean Lovett and Anthony McFarland. They're injured. A couple injuries on the offensive line. So all things considered, you put up 12 points. Not good. However, you continue to progress and continue to push on forward and whatnot. So, it is what it is on that front. Moving forward, pretty pumped to see Dormandy get this opportunity. I think he's playing for his job in the league right now, not just the XFL but UFL, NFL but UFL, but overall pretty good stuff. I'm pretty satisfied with it. Number 4 coming into this game, Adrian Martinez. He was number 4 last week, 14 of 28, 163, one touchdown, no picks, 5 rushing attempts, 4 rushing yards. I just felt like Martinez is not developing as fast as everyone thinks he is. I think some of these blitzes that were coming off the edge, they were showing them blitz, and he did not slide protection, did not change the play to like a quick read or something like that. And I think he's kind of just thinking he can do too much, and that's kind of going to be his bugaboo here. I mean, St. Louis or Michigan has some dudes on that defensive line. They have some dudes all over the defense, and 2 of their defensive backs are pretty damn good. And then it's just Nate Brooks isn't bad either. And then they have kind of a armada at safety, and then they have the nickel who's pretty good. And their linebacking core is honestly the weakest part of their defense, and it's still pretty good because now they're bringing Javen White down, and now they're adding a whole nother level of athleticism, which should be extremely difficult. I really hope he watches the film. I really hope that Skip, which I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't do it. I'm really hoping that Skip kind of took the defense or offense and kind of didn't show him everything and whatnot. A little bit anemic from their defensive front, in my opinion. I really thought we'd see a little bit more from them, but it is what it is. I thought Carlos Davis would kind of eat a little bit on that defensive line, but we'll see. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, I think they only gave up 1 sack. It was from Taco Charlton. But yeah, overall, Martinez kind of has flatlined for me a little bit. I still think he gets the MVP because of how great he's been throughout. It was a 5-week span, to be honest with you, playing some pretty average teams during the football season. But in the end, that's not my opinion to discuss and whatnot. It's my opinion to discuss, not my decision to be made. I don't know. I think he's kind of overrated over the last 2 weeks. I think it's honestly since the St. Louis game. when they started calling him out. Is like, oh, this dude runs his slants. And then everyone was like, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of regurgitation in the spring football space, especially on Twitter. But I personally think it's kind of hilarious to see this all kind of like fermenting and whatnot. And I mean, over the last 2 weeks, I've kind of been proven right. But I digress. Going into number three quarterback's going to be Danny Etling. Kind of forced to play the whole game. Played pretty well, 16 of 31, 195, one touchdown, 0 picks, four rushing attempts, 36 yards, second on the team, and one touchdown. I personally feel like they kind of took the gas off once Bryce Perkins got hurt. So I do think they could have probably pushed forward for another score or two as well. I think it's a little bit kind of messed with his mentality a little bit coming out of the games and then having to go back in. I think personally, if they want to go, they're just going to, you should probably just kind of leave, keep one guy in. Larson said that Etling is going to be QB1. I mean, personally, I think he deserved it. There were no injury reports or anything like that yesterday, so we don't know if Bryce Perkins is a full go. We don't know if Chase Garbers is officially out. There have been a couple other players that were, taken out as well. So I'm very curious to see what this last week of like roster gymnastics looks like. But in the end, they'll pop up. But Etling played a good game, played within himself, played within the system, utilized his legs, which is how he makes his money. And then now he's a playoff conference championship game starting quarterback. So pretty good for him. Coming at number 2, Luis Perez. He's been at the top tier of the rankings the last couple of weeks. He goes 23 of 37, 215, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, finishes the year number 1 in passing yards, number 1 in passing touchdowns. Offensive line did not play a good game this week for him by PFF and by eyeballs. Felt like a lot of times they were questioning if Luis Perez was intentionally grounding, if his arm was coming forward, stuff like that. I personally feel that this is kind of a sad moment for Luis Perez. I hope he's able to come back for one more year. But I'm very curious to see if he does. Like, what does that mean for that team as far as do they, want to keep, Lindsey Scott, or does Lindsey Scott or Holden Ahlers want to be around, or are they just like, screw it, I'm not going to be a part of this and whatnot. So very curious on that. Perez crosses the passing touchdown threshold of 50. He's the first guy to do that. Continues to push on, climb up these statistics and whatnot. So big congrats to Perez. Obviously, huge fan of his. He's spring king. It's been a pleasure to watch him since he was with the Birmingham Iron. So I don't know. Without further ado, let's get to number 1, DC Defenders, Jordan Ta'amu. I mean, Ta'amu, I didn't feel like it was the craziest of best quarterback play this week. I feel like it was pretty mid, and overall, like, Ta'amu threw for the second most yards this week behind Nolan Henderson, and he threw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, ran the ball for 9 yards on 2 attempts. I feel like if Perez only threw 1 pick, I'd probably have him at number 1. But in the end, like, a lot of, pretty mid on the quarterback, as the kids say. I personally feel that, not diving too much into it, because the defenses were better, the quarterback numbers are down. So that's kind of where I kind of lie my head on it. I'm not saying I'm right, not saying I'm wrong. I feel like we didn't really get as many crazy athletic plays and whatnot. Like crazy, like, oh my God, like type stuff. But in the end, I mean, Luis Perez leading the league in passing. Yeah, Jordan Ta'amu coming up at 1,800 yards. He hasn't hit 2,000 in a minute. McCarron threw 8 games. He threw for, 1,500 yards. I don't know why they say 9. I think it's because he was active uh, and whatnot. So let's show you guys the UFL QB stats real quick. But it's, I mean, overall, it just nothing too sexy on that front, man. Really, it's actually funny. I didn't even realize this. Perez threw for more yards this year than AJ did last year, and he was only 300 yards away from Ben DiNucci's record. You got, like I said, Teamu at 1,800, Martinez at 1,700. He only played in like 9 games, and he actually only like played fully in probably 6 or 7. So he was potentially a guy who could, probably break DiNucci's record. Dormandy 1,200, 1,100 from Sinet. So usually if you get like, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Usually, with the volatility and just like inadequate offensive line play and injuries, like you're usually like, you get 6, you feel pretty good. Cookus could have been 7, and then you got Michigan, the only team that Michigan and Memphis, the only team that didn't get over 1,000 yards passing. Even San Antonio did and whatnot. So it is what it is on that. I'll be doing an all UFL team pretty soon. That should be out. I'll be doing that on the Marcast. So enjoy that. Now let's move on to the conference championship games. This is going to be our prediction. So overall, this year, I went. God, I gotta look at the description, but I believe I went 24-16. 26-14 this year. So I was percentage-wise, it was pretty good. I'd like to believe I kind of know what I was talking about. Going down to the Michigan and Birmingham game, we talked about it. I think Michigan's going to come down to their pass rush, and I think their offense is going to be fine. Like, I don't think I have to be one of those guys who's like, as long as Etling doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, I don't view Etling as a turnover machine. I think if he gets in trouble, he's going to use his legs to escape. I think he's extremely athletic. He doesn't get enough credit for that. I realistically think they're going to be fine on that front. So, my personal opinion, as long as, it's going to come down to this Michigan defense. As long as you make Adrian Martinez uncomfortable, as long as he's able to be, jarred around in that pocket a little bit. We're not sure where Christian Deloria is. He going to be able to come back and what level he'll be able to play at and whatnot. So I personally feel that this Michigan defense is going to come down to Bauer. I could see them putting up another 20, about 20 points and whatnot, holding the line against Michigan, and being really able to lean on that run game between Etling and Matt Colburn and whatnot. And a big thing too is you got plenty of experience back there with a guy like, I don't want to say plenty of experience, but Nate McCrary gained a lot of experience over the past couple of weeks. Even Toa Tua, who played a little bit last week, he gets plenty of experience and whatnot. So, Michigan's number 3 offense in the league, rushing yards. I think they were like number 2. They're going to control the ball. They're going to have, in my opinion, they're going to be able to, kind of manage this game in their way. And hopefully for their sake, it works out pretty well. Number 1 team in TFLs, number 2 team in sacks. It's it's for the taking there. We can all talk about Birmingham. We can talk about how efficient they are and whatnot, and that's great and everything like that. But in the end, people want to see people lose. They're pretty even as far as they're pretty even. I think on the defensive potential, but I think that front seven, that defensive line is way more dynamic, while Birmingham's is more consistent. But I do think Etling, because of his experience, is able to deal with the pressure a little bit more, and that's what's going to make him a little bit more successful versus Martinez, who might be a little bit more frantic back there and whatnot. However, who do I think wins this game? You got to go with the guys who have done it over and over again. I personally feel that because of how good and consistent they've been over the last several years, I'd be a fool to not believe that Birmingham wins. What do they win by? I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's a 24-22 victory. Birmingham wins. If I'm proven wrong, I will not be mad about it. You know, I hope that I'm proven wrong, but based off the last several years, it probably won't be. And then it is what it is. Moving on to the XFL Conference Championship game. Biggest thing is going to come down to this. It's going to come down to health, and it's going to come down to how aggressive can they be on offense. St. Louis versus a San Antonio defense. It's been okay this year. They've had their moments, but they haven't been, you know, supreme, in my opinion. They did lead the league in sacks. There's a lot of consistent pass rushers. There's no one guy that you're like, oh, that's the dude. They swarm tackle. They play hard. But they only got 9 interceptions this year. I'm not really too high on that. Or excuse me, they only had 4 interceptions this year. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. They only forced 10 takeaways and whatnot compared to St. Louis's 14. The high water mark was 17 by Birmingham and the Birmingham Stallions. They had 16 giveaways, which is second highest as well. St. Louis did a pretty good job of, winning the turnover battle for the majority of the year. I think those numbers are a little skewed because Manny Wilkins had a really bad game, and it's kind of kind of inflated it a little bit. Overall, I personally feel that if they're able to be aggressive, if they're able to kind of play, I don't want to say within themselves, but be true to who they are as far as their, ability to push the ball downfield, not just left and right, I can see St. Louis having a pretty easy time winning this. I do think San Antonio's kind of battered. I do think San Antonio is, kind of limping at this point. Possibly a little bit overmatched and everything like that. But in the end, I definitely feel that St. Louis has the experience, has the wherewithal. They're going to have the home field advantage. In my opinion, I think St. Louis wins this game. If they're pushing the ball downfield, if they're opening their offense, I think they win 26-18. And I think it's a little bit more – I think it's a little less competitive than people give it credit for. That would be my opinion on that. And at that point, I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Like I said, I got Birmingham winning, and I got St. Louis winning. Birmingham wins 24-22. St. Louis wins 26-18. If you guys like this, please like, share, subscribe. We'll be having a couple other people on through the Zoom. Just wanted to run through some of the videos. We'll do a championship preview with our playoff QB rankings, so we'll rank the last 4 to 8 quarterbacks to play. We'll do with Nicholas Storm. We'll do a final QB rankings as well at some point, and then we'll do a UFL to NFL at some point, and then we'll do probably a final recap of Mike Mitchell, get his thoughts on everything on a Saturday or Sunday, whenever we have the most time. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. For my West Coast friends, thank you for waking up early with me. I am on the West Coast. Got up at 5 to do this, but in the end, thank you guys. Have a great day. Be sure to share it around, like and subscribe.